What's happening in the canine industry? For all the latest news, views, and expert opinions, stay right here for the Canine Paradigm. You'll hear from industry leaders, experts, doyens of the industry, learned colleagues, movers and shakers, and the odd randy guest. Get the latest insights and expert advice from both here and abroad from the people in the know. Now, here are your hosts, Glenn Cook and Pat Stewart. And I'm Lofty Fulton, and I'm out of here.
Glenda?
Yes.
We have to do a new ad.
We do.
It's a solemn time. Mm-hmm. Our long-time sponsor of the show, George Kittredge,
Yes.
very, very sadly passed away. And we formerly used to advertise for him his Rowdy Hound boxes.
We did.
So we don't actually know what's happened with Rowdy Hound boxes. You know anything about that?
I looked at the website. It said that they're recalibrating since their founder and boss has passed. But nonetheless, I think that you and I want to honour the memory of George Kittredge anyway. He was a friend to both of us, a hell of a good guy, and he supported us almost immediately. He was on board through and through, and I just don't want any of us to forget George. He was a terrific human being.
So we intend to continue to advertise Rowdy Hound, even though we don't know what's going on with them.
Yep.
In the hopes that they keep going, and that can be a bit of George's legacy that we're able to continue to promote.
I hope so.
In checking it out, we had a look to see, because we're not real good with the sponsorship. So we had a look to see who's actually paying for sponsorship. And we have a list of people to tell you that we support. And the first is our sugar mama, Barbara de Groot.
She's been with us from the start as well. Barbara's been an absolute staple in our...
She's a gem.
She is a gem.
She has a business.
She does. From the Heart Dog Training.
From the Heart Dog Training.
Yeah.
You can check it out. But she supports us as much and more than anybody ever has. So we appreciate you very much, Barbara. Another person who's supported us from the start.
The Einzelwiener.
Einzelwiener.
The Bullfed.
The Bullfed.
Yep.
It's where I get all my stuff.
Yeah.
It is, truly. It's where I get all my dog gear. If I need something, Jason's my first point of call. I don't use his shit website. He has a website. It's dog shit. I just message him directly. You guys probably should use his shit website, but I don't.
Yeah, because you don't want to message him directly and get his grumpy ire of the day.
Yeah, but do it. Get all your dog stuff from Jason. He's got everything you need. He's got all the shit that you need to train a dog for realty.
Everybody who comes to seminars and looks at meals and asks me meals questions, ask Jason.
Yeah.
Jason can point you in the right direction for getting the meal that's best suited for you.
I really like his leashes. I'm a big fan of his leash pack. That's why I sort of convinced him to do it. But anyway, get your stuff from Einzelwiener.
Yep.
Do you know who has a fantastic website and ships internationally?
My wife?
Your wife,
Yeah.
Canine Pharmaceuticals.
I couldn't imagine her not having a good website, how much of a perfectionist she is.
Well, the products are amazing. My dog merely being alive is a walking testimonial to that. My dog, who I've retired numerous times and has come out of retirement when I've managed to get his body back to healthy, and a big part of that is related to Canine Pharmaceuticals. So check it out, everybody.
I could say so many nice and biased things about Canine Pharmaceuticals and my wife, but what I will say is ignore me. Just look at testimonials. The testimonials speak for themselves. That's where the field trials are working. What makes Narelle's day, and mine as well, is when people are emailing in and sending messages of, well, primarily people have had no hope in the past because just everything that they were trying wasn't working, and now it is. And that is the testament that something is actually really working. And the other thing which I will add, one of the things that Narelle's told me in the past is dogs are incapable of understanding the placebo effect.
Oh, that's a good point.
So you can fake it on a human, but you can't fake it on a dog.
I never thought about that before. That's actually a really good point.
Well, my wife's actually a very smart person.
There you go.
So she's told me that humans are subject to the placebo effect where dogs are not. So it either works or it doesn't on dogs.
There you go. That makes total sense.
Yep.
There's one other person who puts a fair amount of work into this show.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah. Funny about that.
And I have a digital product that you can buy. If you go to my website, seriousdogbusiness.com, right now I've got 2 courses available to you. The Overview, which is a small course where you could learn how I teach.
Yep.
But the other one is the Wave Tops, which is a bigger course. It's everything I know about dog training. Well, it's not everything. It's a lot of what I know about dog training.
Yeah,
Check it
terrific.
out.
Yeah.
$500 dues. That's all it's going to cost you.
I recommend it when people are saying, what do I do? How do I get in the industry? I recommend them to your course.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks,
Yeah.
sir. All right, on with the show. Welcome back to the Canine Paradigm. I'm your host, Pat Stewart. I'm joined today by my co-host, Glenn Cook.
Hello, friends.
It's just us.
It is. We had Birdie on a couple of times. That was great. She's launched a new business model, themagicanddogs.com. It's going well. She's got people enjoying her concepts and her media that she's been giving away, and also her background projects that she's got in her project. So if you want to get involved in that, we've had Birdie on a couple of times. She'll probably be joining us again, no doubt, in the future somewhere if she comes up to do another stint up here at some stage.
But you've got something to talk about.
I've got something to talk about.
Hit us with it.
A while ago, I saw some social media from Justin Rigney. He was doing it with his shirt off. Hopefully he doesn't block me for saying that, because he seems to block it.
Jesus Christ, if I had a fucking body like Justin, I'd never wear a shirt again.
I know, he's a bit of a monster, isn't he? He's a big corn-fed country boy for sure. And he's getting fitter too. Like I saw him.
He's jacked. Yeah,
he's really, really jacked.
I'd do anything for a body like that except go to the gym. That's what I'm not willing to do. I'd do anything except go to the gym and eat clean. Fucking not interested.
That's like Meatloaf. I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that.
Won't do that.
The great thing about what Justin has been doing, he kind of fits into that category like Larry Crone, where Larry throws whatever he wants out there. And I was going to say he throws caution to the wind, but Larry's just one of these people who you don't own him and he can't be controlled by you. So if he's got to be in his bonnet, he'll go out there and say it. Like a lot of people are very, and this is the sad thing about society and social media, is social media worked out, I can control you by stacking it against you, that if you say something that we don't like, we can cancel you, or we can get a gang to come after you to cancel you. And that's why a lot of people just won't do it. Very honest people, and a lot of people that I know who are very sentinel in society of seeing wrongdoings and speaking up about it, but they're also very cautious when it's a sensitive project or a topic and getting on social media, because the problem is that the asylum handed the keys to the lunatics, and the lunatics run social media. That's the issue with it. There's a lot of people out there who are complete and utter Fruit Loops, and they don't go to bed. They sit up all night trolling and trashing and tearing people apart. One of the things I've loved about Larry is he doesn't care if people stop following. Like there was a stage where he lost thousands of people following him because he made some statements, and he just said, I don't give a fuck about losing those people. I'm actually glad not to have them as part of my community anymore, because I don't want those people in my life. I don't want those people following me if they're so sensitive to some of these topics. And he goes, and fuck them. That's how it is. And Justin is very much the same sort of person. And to a degree, you and I are as well. You know, like we've talked about some things that have pissed people off from time to time.
I think, mate, what you're describing about both Larry and Justin, I only know Justin sort of peripherally. We've messaged each other a few times, but we've never had like a long back and forth. I've never met him in person.
Yeah,
we
likewise.
tried to link up years ago, but it just didn't work out. You know, Larry's a friend. He's been on the show numerous times. But I think what you're talking about, and certainly what's observable and most people understand about them, love them or hate them or whatever, however you feel, is that they're authentically themselves. And I think that's what people are really drawn to. And I think I'm positive that this is reciprocal. Like I don't agree with everything Larry says. I don't agree with everything that Justin says, but I absolutely respect the way that they say the things that they say. For the most part, on anything that they speak on, we're generally going to fall on the same side of the ledger. Generally, we're going to agree mostly. There'll be specifics in difference and stuff like that. Like there'll be minor changes, and there's probably flat out things that I don't agree with that they do say or whatever. But in general, I think that I agree largely with their message and what they do. But what you're referring to is that they are very just authentically themselves. And certainly of Larry, like again, both of us just confessed to not having met Justin in real life, but having met Larry, and I followed Larry for a long time before this podcast even existed, because Larry's he's a YouTube person. Like he's a person that is all over social media. And I think one of the cool things about the way that he does that is it's very unpolished, right? And he posted about that recently. And that's why he's successful, because Larry's not afraid to just fucking point the camera at himself and start talking, right? Whether it's live or he just posts it with no editing. Like he's fucking like, nah, I said it, here it is. And I support what I say. And I think one of the cool things that I've enjoyed about Larry is he'll change his mind as well. You know, like he'll go live or post or whatever and be like, here's my opinion. And then if he gets new information, he's like, oh, I've changed my opinion. And he's not like holding himself to the things he said yesterday. I'm getting to my point. When we actually met Larry, we met him in, I think it was 2019 in
Colorado.
Yeah. I was like, oh, please let this guy be who I fucking think he is. You know what I mean? You know, when you meet someone and you're like, oh, please fucking don't let him show me behind the curtain and it be different. And then you're like, oh God, like I got to deal with that now. But Larry was the opposite. Like we saw behind the curtain and it was exactly the same as what's in front of the curtain. Like there's There's no fucking change. He is in character 24/7 because that's who he is. And I think that that's what people are really drawn to. While you and I don't post on social media in that way, like we are on this podcast in that way. We are authentically ourselves here because it's just me and you talking to each other. And we put the conversations out. And I think that's what people are drawn to is authenticity rather than, because you can smell it a mile away when people are fake.
Yeah, that's a terrific way of bundling it up. You summarized it well in the caption of authenticity. Some people hate that word. Some people love it. I think it's relevant to someone like Larry and to a degree, Justin. As you said, we don't know him as well.
I hope that's the case. It certainly appears that it is.
We probably should get him on the show one day and have a yarn to him.
Yeah, I for sure. Like,
if he would like to.
I can remember organizing with him a couple of times and then it not happening in the end for whatever reason. Couldn't get the times.
Oh man, there's been so many people that we've tried to organize with doing their shows or them coming on our show, and it's, our time schedules are just all over the place, being United States or UK or wherever it might be, but it's a difficult thing of it. But yeah, getting back to that point, mate, I remember there was a time with Larry when he was doing a live, as you said, even he was piss farting around with the camera trying to get it going at the start. And he's going, is this working? Am I even on? Can anyone hear me? And I'm just laughing because he's going, sorry, folks, like I'm not technically proficient and I've had a couple of glasses of whiskey and, I'm just going to say that straight up. But then as he got into it, he was having a rant about somebody. And I believe, I'm not going to say absolutely, but I believe he was calling someone out for lying about something on the internet or his perception of a lie. And he said, at the moment, I'm so mad that if I see you, I'm going to punch you in the fucking face. And mate, I was fucking rolling with laughter because I'm thinking, he's just put that out there. Like he's literally just put that out there. I messaged him afterwards. I said, dude, you are hilarious. And I said, and I love how authentic you are. And I said, most people when they get the shits with things like that, they won't just say it. They'll put some fucking lovely silk screen in front of it. So they gloss it over and they'll kind of get there, but they'll pull back at the last minute and just say, well, we'll leave it there. We won't say too much more about that. But there's also defamation and those sort of issues as well that they're very real and they exist. And there's parasites, monsters, con men, witches, evil people out there. They use the law to their advantage and they hide behind it, even though they're ridiculously horrible people. Some of the most sadistically trashy people that you'll ever meet in your life, and yet the law will support them in those sort of instances. They destroy lives. They destroy communities. They'll fleece anybody without a second thought. They're disgusting people in every facet. So I'm glad that there are still people out there who will call them out and hold them accountable for the heinous behaviour that they actually have. However, getting to my point, I wanted to talk about something that I saw. Justin Rigney put up a post a while ago where Victoria Stilwell was making all these claims about people using tools, in particular saying, no dog will be happy, words to the effect of. I haven't watched it for a bit of time because we were supposed to talk about it last week. I have refreshed in the meantime, but I'm going to say words to the effect of. But words to the effect of saying that if you use tools, you can't get all these happy behaviors out of dogs. Trainers who use positive methods get better results out of dogs. And Justin Rigney, God bless him, put the post up with him interjecting and showing dogs using remote trainers, using tools, happy dogs running around, living fulfilled lives, and primarily calling her out on the spot and just saying, these are lies, you're lying to communities, you're misleading people. As I said, he was doing it with his shirt off, which I found hilarious. But he held her accountable and he held the community that supports that way of thinking accountable as well. And that's what I thought would be a good leader into talking about this show. I think at the moment, I'm of the opinion that we're letting Dracula run the blood bank at the moment. We tried to work as a community to reciprocate with some of the people in the force-free community or whatever they want to call themselves. We were trying to meet people halfway. I kind of feel, and I'm going to say it, I kind of feel that in my mind, a lot of that was a bit of a facade. I felt like I got dragged out to deep water by expert swimmers and I got left there to drown, along with a lot of people in my community. I feel that it was something that people were trying to get us to lay down arms so they could beat us with experience on the other end of it. And I just felt like you guys have got nothing to lose. You're not using tools at the moment. So primarily what you want us to do is lay down the tools, join you. You kind of have this community of people that feel like, oh, I indoctrinated them. I got them to come across. I converted them. Yeah, that was the word I was looking for. I converted them to our way of thinking. And I just feel that went really badly for a lot of dogs. I'm not even thinking about it for myself. I'm not concerned about what people think about my desire or evidence behind the use of tools or the desire to want to use them to help correct some significant behaviors and to shift some dynamics of dogs into what I consider a better realm. I really feel like a lot of people got conned out of doing it, because I've had conversations with trainers over time. Maybe you have as well, but I have had trainers that have now are really confused about where they sit in the spectrum of helping people out. Where are you with this?
Mate, I agree. And like, I can speak from firsthand experience. I've only been doing this 10 years. And prior to that, I was training dogs, but not as a full-time job. So I've only been full-time trainer for 10 years. And in that 10 years, I can think of at least 2 sort of seasons where I have been heavily influenced by force-free propaganda. And, you know, you've been in conversations with people. I can think of at least 2 occasions. There's maybe even more, like to varied degrees, but certainly 2 seasons where I have tried really, really hard to reduce the level of compulsion that I have in training and reduce the amount of like tool usage, like get to the point where I'm adjacent to force-free training, right? Because to me, I just want to be effective. That's all I want to do, right? But I think about, in terms of the process of being effective, is the experience of the dog. And so to me, it doesn't matter whether I fix the problem if the dog is a disaster when I fix the problem. And if I'm dealing in sort of behavior mod and stuff like that, say we've got a dog reactive dog, right? The fact that the dog is no longer dog reactive isn't necessarily a marker of success, because a dead dog is not reactive, right? So like when we apply that dead man's test, that's not good enough to say the dog is no longer reactive, because if I want to, I can completely shut the dog down to the point where the dog is so afraid of any kind of action, or knows that there is such a hefty consequence for any kind of action, that it doesn't do anything wrong, but it's also not enjoying its life. It's objectively no better. Anybody looking at that can determine that. And while I'm not doing that, there's something happening within the black box, right? The mind of the dog, that we're not able to know for certain. And we can read the body language of the dog. We can see the way that the dog acts. We can watch the behaviors of the dog. And that gives us a really good window into what's going on inside the mind of the dog. But it's not perfectly clear. In the same way, I don't know what's happening in your mind while you're looking at me right now. Like I've got an idea. I can see the way that you look at me. I can read your body language. I can see, and you know, like, it's hard enough with us talking on Zoom now. I can watch your cues and I can see when you like maybe look like you want to talk, and then I can stop a little bit in order to give you space to do that. But what I'm looking for is I'm reading all those anticipation signals from you. I'm looking at the way that you might hold your mouth and stare at me as though like you want to speak. So that's all we can do with the dog. But I don't know for sure that that's the case for you, right? Like I have to give you that space. And even with us here, when we do that, sometimes I go like, okay, and that's the end of my point. And I look at you and you're like, I don't like, because I thought you wanted to speak, but you didn't, right? And so we make mistakes even in our own human communication like that. So of course, there are instances where I get it wrong with a dog, and worrying about those, thinking about those is what leads me to investigate all the time and continue to try to be better all the time. Wondering if I'm doing the right thing is what drives me to find more information, seek out new sources, try new techniques. And as I said, I can think of twice where mostly what it is for me is that when they talk about long-term stress of the use of tools. And certainly I can think of an occasion where I read an article by someone I won't mention, but it was a name, and they were talking about how the use of aversive tools, particularly the e-collar, had these long-term detrimental effects that were not observable in the moment. And it had a bunch of bullshit in the article that I decided, well, you know, I don't necessarily believe that to be true, but it could be, because what the fuck do I know, right? And like, I'm not measuring the cortisol in the dog as it's working. I'm going off body language, right? I'm going off the things that I can observe. And so every time that I have decided, okay, I'm going to try and be as force-free as I can, what I find is that, now, before I go into the negatives of times that what I've experienced. There's for sure sometimes if you're going to go into a boxing ring with one hand tied behind your back, you get fucking good with that other hand, right? Or you'd better. And so for sure, there is good that has come from me deciding, okay, I'm not going to use the tools. Let's see what I can achieve here. Let's see how far I can go. And for sure, creativity comes of that, where you go like, okay, maybe this is an avenue I could take. Like, here's a way that I could reward. Here's a way that I could set up this scenario of this dog reactivity so that I don't get an expression of the behavior and I can reinforce for not expressing the behavior. So for sure, it's not a total loss me having investigated this stuff. Like, I improve my skill set. I force myself to do things differently. But in every instance where I have gone, okay, I'm going to do this, it's not long at all before I'm like, this is bullshit. This isn't working better. And even if I do accept holus bolus, even if I just take on board the use of aversive tools is going to create a lingering stress that I can't measure, and therefore the dog is running hot for the remainder of its life. Even if it were true that by putting the prong collar on, that puts the dog into a level of stress that, is decreasing its lifespan, because while it's got that on, it knows that it's subject to a set of consequences that it's not subject to when it doesn't have it on. Every time that I've gone through this, I look and I go, but now I can't communicate with the dog as effectively. And so now I am increasing all the other problem markers, like the stress of not knowing what the fuck is going on, the stress of the dog thinking that it's in control of a situation that it's absolutely not in control of, thinking that its reactivity is going to drive things away, thinking that it even needs to be reactive. All of those things along the way, to me, are just not worth it. Like it is objectively worse for the dog. And certainly I've come across, like, I've done all the courses. I've done tons of the force-free courses. I secretly sit in their webinars and watch all the things and don't talk. And there's so many things that I've tried, especially we hear from the aggressive dog experts that don't do any aggressive dog work. And I'm like, mate, I don't know what fucking world you think that's going to work in. Sometimes when I hear people talk about this sort of shit, I'm like, there's no chance you actually train any dogs. There's not a fucking chance. And also there's no chance that you do a handover to a person who's not a dog world person that buys the fucking bullshit that you're selling. Like, that's one of the wildest things. Like, because a lot of dog people, because they get so confused, there's so much information to them, and they all want to do what's right for the dog, right? You go to any dog trainer conference, that is a room full of people who have dedicated their lives to the betterment of dogs and trying to increase the quality of life for the dogs that they work with. That's how most of us get into this. And so when you've got people that really feel that way, they're looking for the ways that they can change what they do, get better at what they do. And they're going to buy some of your bullshit because they're the ones that are thinking, okay, well, I've got a lot of info. Maybe this guy is so much better than me. He's more capable than me. Good luck fucking passing that nonsense on to a lay person. When you are in someone's home and they've got a reactive, aggressive dog, and you're like, okay, well, this is how we're going to fix this. And this is going to be a 2-year project. And this is going to be you doing like perfect fucking timing. And if you fuck it up, you're setting yourself back way more than the 2 years. Like, any instance of the aggression is this. And if it happens, just get out. When you try and explain that to people, they just look at you like you've got a second head. When you're in someone's home and they're like, are you for real? That most people, it's still intuitive that they know, like, well, I have an idea of how I can manipulate an animal's behavior. And even the people who are like, no, I totally am bored in, I'm 100%, I want to go this force-free route. What they seldom get is they're like, okay, cool, but there's very little chance you're going to be able to pull this off by yourself. For starters, we're not even sure this is going to work. There's very little chance you're going to be able to pull this off by yourself. So I'm going to have to come back every week at, whatever you're charging in your area, $100 to $500 an hour, right? Like, I'm coming around to do this with you every week, and it's going to be a 2-year process. And if in the end of 2 years, when the other dog is walking past, if we throw food at the ground, your dog will eat it rather than reacting at the other dog. The amount of people that, like, the average layperson looks at you and goes, are you fucking kidding yourself? Like, that is not a fix to the dog. That would be like you getting a plumber around and saying, hey, there's a problem with this leaking sink. And they're like, okay, well, you're gonna have to come around every week and change this bucket for you. And like, I'll watch you change the bucket, and hopefully over time, you'll be able to change the bucket with the leak. And eventually, like maybe the leak will stop by itself. And if we could tie like some tape around the hole, that might slowly reduce the leak and we'll have to change the bucket less frequently. That's essentially what it is when you say to someone like, oh, this is the method we're going to take, right? It's perpetual management, and maybe management better than they were doing, but it's still just perpetual fucking management.
That's an interesting point that you just used there about the plumber coming round to empty the bucket for you, because in Justin's points that he was talking about, he was referring to a lot of these trainers who are just fleecing their clients. And he said, you've got a client for life now. You've got somebody who is on the dime all the time, has to ring you every week to say, what do I do now? 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 Mate, to be honest, I've had one of those people recently who came to me and on the sly, secret, can't talk about it, can't reveal it to their club. I know you've had many of them before. We've talked about them. You've used them as case studies on podcasts that we've done. But this was recent. This was another one that was recent where a client came and said, I've got all these problems. This is what the dog is doing. And I said, yeah, I can fix it. And I said, and there's no point in repeating what you've done. And I said, happy to look at it. And let's do that. Let's see if there's anything that they've missed. Let's do a bit of a case study. Show me what you've done. Show me what you can do. Show me what they've told you to do. Go through the whole process. And to be honest, without sounding like I'm gouging them themselves, it's on their money that I'm sitting there and listening to their story. So I'm happy to sit there and listen. And I'm happy to take it on board. And I'm happy to say, why did you come to me? And what are we going to do about it? And they said, there's a few things I don't want to do. There's a few tools that are out of the question I don't want to use. And I said, so you're already implying limitations on what we can do. And I said, and some of those tools that you've mentioned, like the electric collar in our state are illegal. So that's out of the question. We're not going to use it. But there are other tools there. And I said, all I'm going to suggest that we do and start off this lesson with is a slip lead. I reckon I can absolutely get your dog to start changing its behavior very quickly using a reductionist technique and, being sensitive to the dog's needs about where it's sitting at the moment. I can help your dog work through this problem. And I said, but I'm not going to do it positive only. There's no way. You've done 2 years of this. It's not working. The dog is 3 years old now. And for the last 2 years, it hasn't gained any progress. It's probably gotten worse. It's gotten more sensitized to the behavior. So I'm glad you came. It's not a tell-off. I'm just walking you back through this process. And that's what I try and do with people. I just walk them back. And that's what I'm going to do with the dog. I'm just going to walk the dog back and I'm just going to get to the point in the dog's head where it goes, this isn't a good idea. I used to feel comfortable about doing this and I was actually getting off on the behavior, but now I don't. And I said, so I'm not punishing the feeling that the dog has because I can't do that. But I absolutely am going to work on that operant behavior of the dogs. I am going to take that away from the dog. I'm going to snatch it straight away. And I'm going to tell the dog, hey, you don't do that anymore. Not with me. And I said, it can start with me and then we can pair it over to you. And I said, I can have you in the driver's seat quickly, but we only move as fast as the student is prepared. And I said, the teaching has to be that way. Teachers must only teach to the level that the student understands. I can't do it any faster than that because then it would be unfair and somewhat cruel to the dog. So we did. No magic. Same thing that we always do, same thing that all good dog trainers do around the world. Just work with a little bit of pressure and just show the dog this isn't a good idea anymore. As I explained to the owner of the dog, I said, I don't want you to feel like a piece of shit over this. And I'm also don't want you to walk away thinking this is the end of the session. I said, there's lots of homework that's got to be done in this. There's lots of considerations. There's lots of boundaries that need to take place. And I said, but I want you to come back to me and I want you to tell me if this is changing the dog's life, if this is changing the dog's mindset just by this simple practice. And I said, and it is simple. It is simple. And I said, there's no magic tricks here. There's no gouging going to go on. I'm not going to get you back every week. And I said, I reckon I need to see you a maximum of 3 times before you can do this yourself. Maximum. And I said, but if I need to see you any more than that, if you just need recurrence, it's entirely up to you. But I am going to make you a fisherman. You're going to be catching the fish after this. I'm not going to give you the fish a day or change the water for you every day. Mate, you and I have talked about this. Guests that we've had on have talked about this. We've talked about this before. By the end of that lesson, that dog was more comfortable about not displaying the behavior and sitting at my feet, wagging its tail, looking lovingly into my eyes. And I said to the owner of the dog, as I've said to all owners of dogs in situations like that, I said, you tell me what you see with your own eyes here. Does your dog have Stockholm syndrome? Is your dog in fear of its life? Is your dog's tail tucked between its legs? And they said, I'm actually shocked that the dog now prefers to sit at your feet than it does mine, because the dog has had a history of being fearful of other men. Again, no magic tricks. I'm not professing to be a better dog trainer than a lot of my colleagues. I've watched other people doing this. I've learned from people how to do this myself. People have shown me and passed down the skill. Seminars I've been to, mentors of mine, friends, anybody who's got skill, I've sat with them and watched them do the same sort of thing. We've talked about it before. Again, it's not magic. It's just a simple process that anybody can do. And that's why it fucking upsets me so much, because I can pass that quickly onto the client, and I don't need to have them every week coming back to say to me, now what? Now what? Now what? The only thing that I need them to say is, I've made a little adjustment, or this happened. What do I do? And I've said the pressure is too large for the dog. You're too close to the stimuli. You have to step away and reset the situation. And they said, is it that simple? And I said, hopefully, find out, get back to me. Without charging them, not a fucking cent. This is just follow up on the phone, 5-minute conversation. Come back to me either on social media or another quick phone call and said, yeah, it worked. That's exactly what I needed to do. I was too close to the fire and I got burned. And I said, that's it, man. That's what I wanted you to learn. That's all I wanted you to understand, is when you're too close, you just have to step back, you have to reset and take that as a loss. And they said, fuck, this is quick, isn't it? And that's the part that fucked with my head, and that's the part that makes me so emotionally damaged all the time when I hear it. When they say those words, this is quick, isn't it? Why didn't I do this? And I said, how about you go and tell your buddies about it? And they go, oh, I can't do that, Glenn.
Can't do that.
Yeah, they're still on the tit. They won't listen to me. In fact, that's going to cause me a world of damage. And I said, that's the sad part about this. I have to be the monster that lurks in the darkness. And yet I was the salvation for you and your dog today. And she said, yeah. I know. I get it. She said, I get it. And she said, I would never have considered coming to you unless I was in this desperate situation. But now I get it. That's not one person, folks. For all our friends out there listening to this, like the people who are deniers or doubters, or even the people who don't like us and still listen to our podcast anyway, because you're out there as well, this fucking happens for people. This transformation happens for people without their dogs having to deal with this cruel or unjust manifesto that people are sprouting about online. Don't get me wrong. There are shitty people out there. There are fucking terrible people that I'm so ashamed of in our community. You know, and this is why I think that you and I and all our colleagues have talked about raising the bar. And this is why we've entertained talking to other people about this concept. You know, I'm not going to speak for you, but I'm going to speak for myself. I am very ashamed of those people. I watch their work online and I think that is just terrible. Now, there have been people that have done terrible work online and then they've had a bit of a soul-seeking moment and they've had a bit of clarity and they've reached out to somebody and they've got mentored and they've done better work and they've, like these dogs we're talking about, they've made a transformation. They've become better versions of themselves. They've got better knowledge, better skills, better techniques, you know, because they realize something was missing. I'm doing the wrong thing. People are, you know, taking the time to reach out to me to tell me, hey, you need to change what you're doing because what you're doing is not great and it doesn't read well into the room and it's causing problems for other people. And people have joined in raising the bar. For those people, can't tell you how proud you should be. Don't worry about how proud I am of you. You should be proud of yourself because you've actually educated yourself. You've actually found ways to do this. And like you said before, mate, you've used the knowledge of other people in the absence of tools to find out ways to do things as well, as have I. And I recommend it to people. I still say that you should walk that path until you don't have to. But when you have to, consider it, which is what I told the client. I said, see, the reason that you came to me is because you realize this is bullshit and it doesn't work, right? And I said, I'm not going to put words in your mouth. You tell me. And she said, yeah, that's right. It doesn't work. It's not working. It hasn't worked. All of the trainers that I've gone through me like a train over the advice that they want to give me, none of it works. The dog never changed. The behavior is escalating. I said, your dog will revert back to this if you don't do the mental math here and work on the process and actually physically do the technique that I've done. It will reduce. You'll see a reductionist in this. But if you just go back to saying, okay, it's fixed, I'm just going to go back to my friends and colleagues, the behavior will return quickly. The dog will want to do that sort of thing because it got off on it before. It liked it. There was residual there and the dog will think about it and go, I don't have to comply with any of this tough stuff anymore. You know, like when we have to get a little bit tough and have to have these conversations, I don't have to do that anymore. I can go back to the easy stuff and get my easy fix, you know, and get my heroin hit that way. Mate, this is the sad part about it for all of us. The whole community fucking mourns cause another loss of a dog when we see that sort of stuff, because we just know the person is going to get back on the tit again and they're just going to go, yep, I'm doing what my old mates told me to do before because I just feel that's the better way to do it. And that is absolutely terrible. Now, another point before I hand over to you, Melanie Uda, she puts out some amazing content. And one of them, which I saw her talking about the other day, was when people are rabbiting on about the thousands of studies that exist out there. And she put that to rest. She said, let's just cut to the chase here. There's 26 studies. Half of them are owner surveys. The other half are full of flaws. So let's not drag that study up. And she said where people are just cherry picking some of the information in there, which is largely misinformation, which I love Melanie for. She's another one of these people who she's gone against the status quo. She's speaking out against all of the haters and all of the threats that are coming through there and just saying, if we're going to have these talks, if we're going to talk about things and we're going to use information that's out there, let's talk about it honestly and openly rather than just cherry picking a little bit of information, which I've been guilty of that in the past before. I've talked about things which I'm not really steep in knowledge about. I just thought the phrase that I've been seeing circulating fits my bias and I'm going to use it to weaponize myself against other people with. And Robert Sapolsky talks about it in his book, Behave. He says, all you need to cross the line is just the slightest shred of evidence and you'll be convinced that you're on the right side of history, and you'll do atrocities over that. You'll do terrible things. And that's the thing that I'm afraid of, is the atrocities that people will commit on the very slim thread of shallow evidence that exists out there, which may or may not be evidence after all.
I want to just get a little bit more practical because, we're a podcast, we're an audio only show. And I think you and I sometimes can be a little bit guilty of being like, you just do the thing and then the dog does the thing and without going into the details. So I want to just give an example of something because it just happened a couple of weeks ago. I took on a dog that was a friend of a friend because I'm not doing that kind of work at the moment, but I do when it's applicable to me, and it was a dog in the area and blah, blah, blah. So I took on this dog. And it was indicative of very much what we see. And I think it's the biggest failing of modern training is this kind of dog that is the high drive, overly friendly, and therefore can become reactive adolescent dog. So this was a German short-haired pointer, 10 months old. It's quite a nice dog. I quite like the dog. And it's exactly the type of dog that falls into the category that can really end up with a life of a very managed and seen as dangerous headache, pain in the ass dog, right? So he's large. He's a GSP. So, he probably weighed 25, 30 kilos, but he's a large dog. Plenty of drive, but that kind of thin nerve kind of drive, like always a little bit on edge. But that's typical of a GSP. That's kind of like how they're meant to be, in that they want to do stuff. They want to be working all the time. And the dog was, by my guess from the videos I got sent, because I got sent a couple of like the problem, was that he's just probably very dog social and wants to engage with other dogs, but he's being walked on a front attach harness, right? And so every time he lunges towards that other dog, he gets that like spin around kind of weird thing that happens. And the trainer prior that they weren't happy with this is what I mean, because the owners were like, this doesn't stack up. We're doing the things, but they're not dummies. They were like, this doesn't feel like we're making progress. And I, as a lay person, can intuitively understand that this wouldn't control the behavior correctly. So this dog that wants to go and get to other dogs really wants that. He's a high drive dog. So when he's restricted by like full body compression via the front attach harness, and there was video of the front attach harness and there was collar video, and the collar was like this big fat, almost like a martingale thing. It didn't tighten actually around the dog's neck, but it was like 2 inches wide, but cloth material. So of course he's frustrated when he's being withheld from getting to what he wants to do, which for a GSP is a very vocal dog at the best of times. So of course he then loses his mind screaming, barking. So the look is like, holy shit, this is a totally out of control dog. And I said to the owner, I said, what do you reckon he'd do? Like, has he actually attacked another dog? And they're like, no, we've never let him get to the other dog. And I said, what do you reckon? Like, what do you think would happen? And their assessment was like, oh, we don't think he'd do anything. Like, he definitely would cause carnage if he got into the other dog, but I don't expect that he's going to bite the other dog. And I was like, yeah, me neither. This isn't aggression like we see. Like, your real aggression is pointy. like it has a direction and it has much more intensity and it has like a quality about it. When a dog really plans on fucking up another dog, there's so much more intent that is obvious to see. This is a dog just screaming, losing its mind at the end of the leash, and it's bouncing back and forth all over the place. So like, it's not like this is a dog that's looking at that other dog and thinks, I'm going to fucking kill it, right? But it's lost clarity and it just wants to get to the other dog. And it may well kill it when it gets there, but that would be like because of the action of running over. It's not running over there and going to bite and like direct hit to the neck. Like that's not going down, right? This isn't a pity that's like gone into prey and is just like scratching towards. It's a dog bouncing all over the place. So all the training to that point had been just try and redirect with food, right? It was all try and redirect with food. But of course, this dog is hitting the line over and over and over. And when we go over threshold, which of course, like, even their own trainer who they told me, and it was something I didn't know the person, their own trainer had said, you don't want to go over threshold. You don't want the dog erupting. You want to keep it sub-threshold. But the dog does that at the earliest sight of another dog. Like they're in suburbia. They're around here. So like line of sight around here is at best 50 meters. Like that's all you're going to get from another dog because we're in suburbia. We can't go and find a paddock. You know what I mean? Like there is no paddock around. At best we can get to like a football field so we can get 100 meters away. But now we're in a like open area, which is a disaster for the dog. So these people have just been walking the streets with this dog. We're in the city, right? Of course, you're going to get ambushed nonstop with other dogs. And even if you join the 4 a.m. walking club where nobody else is out, guess who else is out at 4 a.m. in the walking club? All the other fucking reactive dog people, right? So you're bumping into each other. Eventually, the 4 a.m. club learn each other's routines and give each other space because they know they need it. But like for the most part, you're bumping into other people. So the dog is constantly over threshold. Like that is for sure going to happen. So like, let's talk practically. By the time they bring the dog to me, I'm like, okay, cool. Now there was a time when I used to use like the prong collar was to me something I kept for when I thought, okay, like the slip lead is not going to work. It's something I keep up my sleeve. And usually if I was putting someone in a prong collar, like lesson 1, it would be because there was a power to weight differential that had to be overcome immediately. Like I can remember the first client I ever when I like met them was like, oh, we're putting a prong collar on this dog right now, was because it was a Doberman that weighed more than the handler and dragged her through traffic to get to me. And I was like, we have to stop this right away because this is too dangerous for both of you. We have to give you a mechanical advantage over this dog, regardless of how we intend to use the tool. Like you have to be able to stop this dog. You have to be able to control the dog. Like that's a non-negotiable. But these days I'm quicker to the prong because for starters, when I was doing like lots of pet work and that was the majority of my income, I don't want to be having that argument with people over and over or trying to convince them over and over. But these people came to me and I wasn't charging them. I was just fixing it because I was a friend of a friend. And I was like, we're putting a prong collar on the dog. If you don't want that, that's cool. Fucking beat it, right? Like I'm here to fix the problem for you. I'm not here to pussyfoot through this. And I would do this with a prong. So we're putting the prong on because the prong is going to give me the full range. For starters, the prong is not an aversive tool until I choose to use it that way. Whereas like the gentle leader, the moment you put that on the dog thinks this is shit and I want it off. No matter what the circumstances are of you using it, it's aversive from the moment it goes on. A prong, the dog doesn't know it's any different to a normal collar until you start to use it. And with the prong, I can be feather soft or I can be as heavy as I need to be. And I also find that there's not much of a transference or a hangover from any other gear because it feels so different on the dog. So because the dog had been wearing this big flat sort of martingale type collar, the kind of thing you'd see on a greyhound, it's felt pressure and release around its neck, right? But not in the way that I want to use with the prong, but it's felt it. So a slip leash is going to have some sort of blurring with that thing. Similarly, it's had the front attach harness on. So now all harnesses are out the window because the front attach harness creates pressure all over the body. So that's now a contextual signal that the dog has. And so of course, when the dog experiences the other dog and gets frustrated and wants to go after it, it's constant pressure on, pressure off that would be similar to you giving a correction to the dog because the dog's hitting the line and bouncing forth, bouncing back and forth. So it's as though somebody is trying to correct the dog whilst the dog is just lunging towards the other dog. Now, they were trying to give the dog food in that moment and create the disengage. And of course, is the dog going to take food while it's losing its mind, jumping up and down, trying to bite the other dog or react towards the other dog? No. So you're going to drag the dog out. You're still offering it food. So the moment that it eventually disengages, it gets reinforced for all that behavior right there and then. Right? And so what I couldn't understand was what they could understand. Sorry, like what these like lay person clients could see was this is madness. Like this is not working. And like this doesn't stack up. And I then explained to them, I was like, yeah, it's even worse that like you guys are good for realizing that you shouldn't give the dog food immediately after it's reacting at another dog with no consequence in between. But also what they didn't get, and I explained to them, was the level of understanding the dog was taking via those pressure signals. Because those pressure signals exist whether you choose to give them to the dog or not. They're happening. He's not off leash and he's not in a bubble, right? Like he's hitting the end of the line, and that is creating an understanding to the dog. And so if I were a dumb balance trainer, I would turn up there and go, okay, well, we have to go over those signals. We have to go into actual aversion. And that's what we see from really shit trainers. And that's what most people think that they're going to invite a balance trainer in to do is like, okay, well, let's just put a stronger tool on this dog. Let's put a more aversive tool. And when the dog does the thing, we'll create such aversion that it chooses not to do that anymore. That's what I think most people think you're going to do when you're a balance trainer. I'm like, no, not at all. I need you to come into my shop here and I'm going to put the prong collar on the dog and I'm going to play with the dog for probably 20 minutes. I'm going to get the food going. And like before we even put the prong on, the prong's going on like halfway into the session, but I'm going to get the food going. I'm going to see how the dog responds to that. Food was a bit weird with the dog because of the weird shit they'd been doing, but I'm going to get a game going with the dog. And I'm going to like have the dog understand this game. Okay, cool. Now this dog wants to play tug. Gotcha. Now I can put the prong on and I can start to manipulate the way that the dog moves. All I need to do is teach the dog two things while in that play session. And neither of them really need to be like taught. Like I don't need them to be proofed behaviors. But all I need to do is teach the dog to walk on a loose leash. And because of that, what I'm saying is just chill with me and yield to the pressure of this prong. Just move the way I move, come with me and I'll engage with you, but don't hit the end of this line out there. I'm going to teach you how to do that. And we're going to play a game of just moving with each other. Then I'm going to teach the dog how to sit. And when I go to do that, the people are like, we don't care about the obedience. We just want him to not be reactive. I'm like, this isn't about obedience. This is about me and the dog learning to move together and the dog understanding that I can manipulate his behaviors and do so repetitively and he'll be paid when he does what I want, but via this tool that I've just put around his neck will help him understand what I want. So I teach him to sit. So there's pressure on, pressure off for that. And then I build some duration. I tempt him out of that sit and I can help him back into the position and help him really quickly understand. And what I see every time I've done anything like this, and this is the standard procedure for any balance trainer worth their shit, if this isn't what you're doing or some variant of, you're probably doing it wrong, is that I develop a relationship with the dog where the dog then looks, and exactly as you said, Glenn, the dog looks at you and goes, hey, I get what you're saying. Like I totally understand the communication that's going back and forth between us. And that's why like my whole courses revolve around the idea of motivate, communicate, coach, because that's the process. I start playing with the dog. I understand your motivations. Cool. Got it. Right. How do you like food? Oh, that's not the tool for me in this one. How do you want to play with the tug? Yep. Cool. Gotcha. Right. I understand what motivates you. Now you've got aversive motivations. Let me show you how to yield to pressure. Let me show you how these things work, but let me show you that this isn't a shutdown tool, but this is something that you should move with so that I can demonstrate things to you. Cool. Got it. Let me teach you something. Let me teach you just to walk next to me so that we can do that out on the street. And let me teach you how to sit and maintain a behavior. I'm not going to ask you to sit out there in the world, but what I need you to do is realize that I'm passing on information to you and I'm using this prong to do it. So all of that will take me half an hour maximum, right? Depending on the dog. This dog in particular was great. He was really into it. And so then I go, all right, let's go find a dog, right? And so we go out in the street. Session one, we're not going to walk past the dog. Like we're not going to go and find he's in trouble, but we're going to go to where the dog reacts. And then I'm going to go to the dog with the prong collar. I'm going to go, hey, fucking knock it off. And because the dog has learned how those signals work and he knows that I'm a person that is very clear with you. The signals are super clear. When I want you to do something, it's clear. When I don't want you to do something, it's clear. And I pay you and I'm a fun person to be around. It's so easy to say to the dog, hey, don't do that. And the dog goes like, hey, what the fuck? This is our first experience of that. If I haven't found a way to punish the dog in the training, if I can find a way to punish the dog, and usually I will, that's the function of the sit, is that I teach the dog to sit so that I can tempt the dog out of the sit so that then I can punish the dog for breaking the sit. And most people, like the owners, wouldn't even observe that I've done that. Like when I say I'm punishing, I mean like technical definition of punishment. I can show the dog, don't do that again. And I do that via creating an aversive experience. As I say, in a way where like the dog goes like, oh, right, cool, got it, I understand. And the owner is totally unaware that I've punished their dog, because it's not like I'm helicoptering the dog. What I'm doing is like tap, tap on the prong, and I move him out of the position. I don't allow him to make progress, and I move him around in a circle a couple of times. And then I reconcile and I go back on with it. So if I can do that, then I take him out into the world. Hey, remember that loose leash I just showed you? You got to do that as we very slowly move around, staying connected, looking for another dog. We find another dog. The dog goes, hey, there's another dog over there. And I go, hey, don't do that, right? And I do the same punishment that I just did to him 10 minutes ago inside. And he's like, oh, this is an aversive reaction. Like, you don't want me doing what I'm doing. Then I go, hey, remember that loose leash thing I showed you? You got to walk like that. Payment, bang. Dog goes, oh, why didn't anyone fucking tell me this 10 months ago? Why have I been allowed to be reactive? People offering, like, you can see when you do that with a dog, overwhelmingly, the dog goes, why didn't someone not tell me this all that time ago?
That's the cherry, right? That's the cherry in this whole discussion, is because I would ask the same question. If I was allowed to get away with something and I was getting, as I was using before, probably a crude analogy, but saying getting the heroin hit. If I was doing something and I thought, I love the way this feels and I'm getting away with it, even though I know it's naughty and other people aren't allowed to do it. Like a few people have said to me, oh, you shouldn't do that, Glenn. You shouldn't do that, Glenn. You shouldn't do that, Glenn. But I do it and I like it and it feels good. I'm getting away with it and I like how cheeky and risque it feels. Like it's good, like it makes me feel like a man. I'm getting all these big, strong feelings about it. But then finally someone comes in and says, hey, if you do that again, man, I'm going to clip you in the ear. And you go and do it and they clip you in the ear. They explain to you, I'm going to do this. It's going to happen. You're going to get it, mate. You got to understand, you got to step back from that behavior because I'm not going to tolerate it, which my uncle did to me one day. My uncle loved me very much. I'm recalling this and I'm using this as an example. He said, Glenn, if you do that behavior again, I'm going to give you a clip in the ear. I thought about it and I thought, I love my uncle. I know he means it, but I've been getting away with it for so long. I'm going to do it. And I did it and he clipped me in the ear. Not hard enough for me to yell or scream or cry or anything like that. And I went, oh, what'd you do that for? And he goes, I just told you, if you do that behavior, I'm going to clip you in the ear. And he said to me, he goes, Glenn, if you do that behavior again, I'm going to clip you in the ear harder. And he goes, so fucking knock it off. He didn't say fucking because I was only a little kid. He goes, knock it off. Don't do it again. And I said, yep, okay. And I didn't do the behavior. Now, I thought about it. I did think about it. And my grandma said to me, because she was the one who said, stop doing this and let me get away with it. She said, if you do that again, I'll tell your uncle. And I said, yeah, all right, cool. I'm not going to do it again. And that was all they needed to control me about not doing the behavior. Because finally somebody explained to me in a way that I understood, don't do the behavior. And that's what I'm saying, mate. That is the cherry on top there. Now, people are listening to this going, oh, you have to hit or you have to strike people. Fuck off. Stop doing this to people because you're sending dogs to the gallows. I know I've said that to you before. Shame on you people. Like seriously, shame on the welfare agencies when you guys can see stats raising, when you can see more postal workers being fucking annihilated by dogs, when you can see stats in people being bitten on the rise, not only just on the rise, they're freakishly out of control. You people are behind this. You're the ones that are taking the tools away from people to be able to control these behaviors. And if you don't like these tools, rather than just banning them like you're always stepping in and doing, why don't you put up behind education? Why don't you say they're not available to you unless you do proper education? And then you can say, but who are going to be the people who do the education? Well, figure that out. You're fucking smart enough to do that. There are plenty of people out there who can deliver fantastic training. You're talking to two of them now, and we've got plenty of colleagues out there who are very capable of doing it. I've seen their work online before. I've seen the progress that they're making with dogs. I've seen how they're fixing communities. I've seen how they're working with dogs. And the same thing that we're talking about. Still got the relationship with the dog. Still have that fantastic feedback from people. Still resolving these issues without being violent, without doing anything crazy, without swinging dogs around on the end of the lead like shameful people that I was talking about before. They're people that either need to step up or be stepped out of the organization. Like if they're doing criminal things, charge them criminally. You have to stop doing this thing that teachers used to do to kids when somebody was misbehaving, and they'd hold the whole class responsible for it and give everybody detention because they were too afraid to speak up against the fucking bully in the room that was going to beat them up after lunch. Figure it out. Do a bit of detective work. Find out who the problem is and go and charge that person criminally. Don't hold a whole organization or a whole movement of ethical and creditable trainers responsible for the shitty work that some moron is doing just because they want to chase social media likes.
Yeah. And I think, mate, to what I was just saying, like that sort of example case study, as balance trainers, that's a dog that I saw a couple of weeks ago, but there's untold number of those dogs that come to us. And of course, there are cases that are much more difficult than that. There are cases that are like, we're going to need 10 sessions for this at least, you know what I mean? You're going to have to do all the homework. And sometimes we get dogs that are legit, you know, like that aggression is pointed, it's got intent, and they're gonna kill that dog first chance they get. And so that's a different case. The fix is largely the same. It just takes a lot more time, right? But for the most part, what I see is these cases that are really one session fixes. And then it's not like it's fixed, but then the owner then goes, oh, right, I get it. Like I can see that. And then we do like another session of like, okay, just show me you doing it. Okay. And then maybe a third, right? Of like, let's go out into the world and get the final bits where you can walk right past the other dog. And for the most part, those are the cases that they're just normal dogs. They're just maybe a high drive dog or like a nervy drive dog or a dog that just has found itself with owners that got bad advice. They're the ones that I see when I close my eyes at night, because they're the ones that are so easy to fix when you have a reasonable skill set. Like you don't need to be off tap. Like you don't need to be Bart Bell and Michael Ellis to pull this shit off, right? Like you just need to understand the process. And what stops people calling in a balance trainer to actually fix the problem is this false narrative that trainer is going to come in and be the dog daddy who just helicopters their dog. Because as I said, like for sure, I can stop any dog being reactive immediately. Like I don't care how reactive the dog is. I can fucking stop it being reactive. Like I can do that. But that isn't the mission. Like obliterating all drives from the dog is not the mission. And I think that's what a lot of people have in mind when they think a balance trainer is going to come in and do that. And it's like, no, actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show the dog a way of, I'm going to harness the dog's motivation so that the dog goes, hey, you're an interesting person. I think I would like to interact with you. I go, cool, gotcha. Then I'm going to develop a way to communicate with that dog. I'm going to say, hey, this is how I tell you I like things. And this is how I tell you I don't like things. Cool, got it? All right, sweet. Let's put those two things together. Let's call that coaching and go out and show you those things. And overwhelmingly, the majority of dogs go, oh, cool, got it. Like I was never actually a problem. I just thought this is what you wanted because you kept yanking me on the collar the way that feels like activation while I'm doing it. And then you keep giving me food immediately after I finished doing it. I for sure thought that's what you wanted. And the moment you go, hey, no, that's not what I want you to do this, overwhelmingly those dogs go, oh, got it, right? Like I was never that committed to it. And those are the types of behaviors like you and I and any other dog trainer, we would never have those problems with our dog. So like this is of normal dogs. Normal dogs will do that shit. That's a totally normal dog behavior when they're not raised in a way where you can go, hey, don't do that. Because you and I would nip that in the butt like straight away, like miles before it became a problem. The moment that the dog were of an age where you could communicate in that way, you'd be like, hey, don't do that. And the dog would be like, oh, right, that's off the Rolodex. I won't do that. So we don't get those very basic reactivity issues. And those basic reactivity issues are the ultimate scamming fucking pool of people for the bullshit force-free trainers, because those dogs are never actually dangerous. So they know that there's no real risk here, right? Like there's no real risk that even if this all goes wrong, even when the management fails, this dog's not going to just cut another dog in half. He's going to run over and he's going to cause problems. And for sure, like someone's getting hurt, but no one's getting killed in this scenario, right? So this is a generally safe thing. The owners are not going to give up on this dog, because I can see that if you're signing up for the stupid force-free package, you're a very dedicated person if you're committing all that time. And what you're doing is they're the people that you can bleed money out of for 2 or 3 years before the dog just ages out of that problem anyway, right? Because that's what we typically see is like the overwhelming, when I sort of talk to people and they go, oh yeah, my dog was reactive when he was young. It was a real headache. But you know, after we got the balance, we got the trainer in and we worked at it for a couple of years, he doesn't do it anymore. I'm like, oh yeah, what else happened in his life? Oh, well, you know, like he turned 6 and we moved to a different area. Like, so the problem you didn't fix the problem. The dog aged out of the problem, right? Like you moved to a different place. The dog got older. You didn't fix the problem. You just
took all the stimuli away.
Yeah. And so you just did the things that the person was telling you to do for 2, 3, 4 years. Create like the dog's life is then objectively shit because every walk it goes on is just another like, okay, let's try and argue about this. To be fair, most of those high drive dogs, they're quite happy in that life anyway, right? Like, because they're like, yeah, being reactive is mad. Everybody loves it. Like there's so many times you could imagine a dog going like, oh yeah, no, my owner loves it when I do this shit. You should see, like they're yelling. When I start barking, they start yelling at the other dog as well. They're like helping me get more leverage on the leash because they're yelling and we're both involved in it. And it's a whole fucking like, we both stress out like crazy. We do it together. It's this real great bonding thing that we do together. She drags me out of the situation. I give one last big fuck you to the other dog while she yells fuck you. She points it at me, but I'm sure she's saying it to the other dog. And then like get a handful of treats the moment I disengage. Like we have a wonderful life. Our existence is fucking great. We're doing it together. Like, so at least for a lot of the dogs are fine. But the life experience of the dog, you go, hey man, you know that if you stop doing that, she'll take you to the park and she'll unclip the fucking leash and you get to run around and do whatever you want. And those dogs that you're losing your mind at because you're barking and frustration not being able to go to, you know you'll be allowed to chase them around and some of them will chase you and you'll actually be allowed to play and you'll have a fucking wonderful time. Dogs like, what? Why didn't someone tell me not to do this 2 years ago? I didn't realize my life could be so much better than this.
Because I was doing the doggy double Dutch rudder before.
So yeah, like that's what's frustrating for me is when you see like nonsense people who don't actually have any capacity to train a dog because like, so that, you know, sort of methodology, that protocol that I just explained, like that's common sense. If you're a balance trainer and you're not doing some version of that, and even the good force-free trainers are doing some version of that as well, right? Like it's about develop a way to have fun with the dog, make the dog think it's having fun in this situation. With balance trainers, we can let them be like, hey, don't fucking do that. Do this instead. Dog goes, yeah, cool, got it, right? Like all competent trainers are doing that. But if you think the moment that somebody is going to come to your house and put on the tools and like, oh, any balance trainer that comes around is going to clip up the tool and helicopter my dog immediately, you really then should be looking at the people who told you that and then going, hey, why are you lying about the other way things can be done? Why do you not want me to see what's on the other side of the street? And we know, like, whenever, hey, don't look over there, it's because over there is better than over here, right? When people are like, yeah, no, don't have anything to do, I'm lying about all the things that they do because I don't want you to look there. The reason they don't want you to look there is because there's nothing over here, and over there is so much better.
Or that they're following the narrative of their sponsors. That's a real thing that exists. Mate, I'll give you an example of that right now. I was giving away free information and hand to heart, I've got a vested interest in this. I've got a wife who's got a company that invests in better feeding for your dogs. So there is an interest there. I'm going to be totally transparent and talk about that. So I've been talking to people about it. And online on a few different forums, I was talking about some things that you could do to change your dog's life, not just behaviorally, but also dietary as well. I said, this is proven. There's peer-reviewed studies on this sort of thing. I had a trainer publicly they didn't directly go after me, but they did a lot of insinuation that was going after me on saying, you know, like people shouldn't be doing this sort of thing. You're shaming people into having to buy very expensive treatment protocols for their dogs. Kibble's fine, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, like I've used kibble all this time and never had a problem with it. And all my dogs have lived healthy, long lives. So I just walked it back, did a little bit of investigation. Guess what? Old mate sponsored by a kibble company. I'm transparent about it. Where's your transparency? That's what I'm trying to say is a lot of these people, you don't realize they've got fucking sponsors in the background who they're trying to appease. People who are telling them there's a narrative behind this, you know, don't use the tools, use the medication. That will help fix the problem. Once again, to point out something that Melanie Uda has been talking about before, some of these medications aren't working the way that you think they are. There's not enough information about them. All the new science that's coming out is saying they're not working exactly like we've been told they are. So they're not fixing problems. They're creating other problems in its place. Now, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a researcher. And I've made that profoundly as loud as I possibly could on any media that I've ever been on. I always say that. So I don't have a dog in that race. But I do listen to enough people who do, on other podcasts when Rogan has invited people on, Huberman has invited people on, Stephen Bartlett on Diary of a CEO, and a lot of the psychology podcasts that I listen to, when they do invite researchers and doctors on and they're saying, hey, for many years we've been sold these products, I think it's more a shareholder's interest than it is in public sector. Like they do work for some people and they do work very well. I'm not a science denier. I'm not a denier of medications where they work well for people, and I've seen the profound results that they do have for people and dogs, but not for all people and all dogs. Some of them have really adverse side effects. I've seen the evidence of it before where people have had to be shipped around, and even on the paraphernalia, it says this can have some self-harm implications if people use this medication. And in some cases, it may or may not have resulted in that. I'm just talking openly, things that I've actually seen that have actually happened in my world. I worry about this. I see it creeping into organizations that I've had an esteemed love for before. And now I'm seeing some of the participants of these organizations trying to convince me that, we've got to let Dracula come back into looking after the blood bank again, or letting a fox in the hen house. I think that that's where we really need to draw the line. I think that the people who won't let us talk at their conferences, who never invite us to be a part of their conversation or never invite us to be a part of their social media groups and so forth, why are we inviting them to ours? Because they're still trying to convince people that their way is the better way, and they're trying to trap people into a methodology that is failing a lot of dogs. And I'm convinced of that. I'm seeing it with my own eyes. I'm not saying that all these people are bad people. I'm just saying that some of the techniques that they've been using are failing dogs. The statistics just speak too loud for me to be comfortable with.
Yep. It's very frustrating to speak about.
Just in closing, before we did that, you and I were pre-discussing the podcast. I was talking about a quote that I heard Jordan Peterson talking about. And I know some people aren't fans of his, but I don't care. Once again, he speaks openly about things that he's researched, and he's been part of bigger conversations with a lot of very intelligent people. One of the questions was asked of him, what's something that has had a profound impact on you, a negative impact on you, something that really sticks in your mind? He said, yeah, that's easy. He said, when I found out that the food pyramid was a scam, was an absolute fake, it was marketing, it was a lie that the whole world endured. That just goes to show the power and the influence that some of the people in government sectors and research sectors and so forth have on the public, and we're duped by it. Even at school, I remember being taught these things at school where it was part of the curriculum that teachers were teaching students. You've got to eat this as part of your diet. And now we're finding out this is a lie. The grain companies influenced the market and got governments to get behind and say, you need to sell sugars to people, you need to sell grains to people because we've got excess of them. And there's, this is a private equity company now, and we've got big shareholders that we've got to pay them. We've got to get people paid, and guess what? You get a kickback of this as well. You get a kicker. We'll fund you. We'll keep you in office. We'll do all the things because we're pretty powerful. Like, we're multi-billion-dollar companies, and we can fund your way of life. We can make you very comfortable. Sure thing. No worries. We've got nothing to lose. What's the harm? It's still good food. We can give this to people. No problems. Now, that sort of stuff, for many years, there's been a lot of very misleading science. So when people say trust the science or you're a science denier, walk it back. Do your own research. Go out there and listen to some profound speakers, people who have been hunted down, persecuted. I get it. There are lunatics out there, and there are people who have been properly discredited. But there are also a lot of people who are researched very well, and they are told that they're lunatics and so forth. But they keep popping up, and conspiracy theory starts to become conspiracy fact after a period of time with some of these concepts. So do your research, look around. Don't just believe everything that the mainstream media just hits you with, and especially in these dog training schemes. If you know that you're working with good people, if you can see the results, like you can actually see them with your eyes, if you can walk that field and you can go out there and see that there are people transforming dogs and people's lives, sit down with them and have a conversation with them. Ask them what's going on. Don't just take it, for example, of, no, my mentor said I'm not allowed to talk to you. If we want to really open borders up and do some course correcting here, I do want to have an outcome to this. I don't want it just to be a rant podcast where we're just saying, I don't trust these people anymore, fuck them, let's throw them to the wolves. I do want to have an outcome here. I do want to see organizations exist where we can talk comfortably about concepts. And if people don't want to be a part of that, or if it's not part of their paradigm, then don't invite them to come and talk to us at our conferences. Just say, look, if you want to open up about things, if you want to invite us to your platforms, if you want to actually have good mediated conversations, let's do that. But let's not talk about science fiction when we're talking science fact.
Yeah. Let's see some demos first.
Let's see some demos. Yeah.
All right. That's it.
Yep.
Another episode. Can Paradigm. As always, if you like what you hear, just like, rate, share, subscribe. Do that through whatever subscription service you download us from, and then go to another one and do it there. They don't check. You can do it. It does help a lot, especially as an audio-only podcast. That's actually the only signal you can send to the platform that you like the show, listening to it. That's the way it works with podcasts. You know that? Like, they know you downloaded it, but they don't know that you listened to it. It's on your device. So you've got to go in and tell them, hey, I listened to it and it was good. I like it. Other people should. And then it will show that to more people. That's what you could do for us.
That'd be good.
If you want to support the show, yeah, it'd be great. If you want to support the show, best way to do that is jump in on Patreon. A few bucks a month gets you a giant backlog of information as well as new stuff going forward. You could pay more. You could pay $10 and have a live stream with me every month and ask questions. You can pay as much as you want. You could buy a Lamborghini for me if you want. Glenn needs a tractor. He's a farmer now. Lamborghini make tractors, so you could get him one of those.
I don't want a Lamborghini tractor. I want a Kubota.
Okay.
Yeah. As I said before, I'm still 1 unit away from getting a tractor. One unit of tractor.
Away from tractoring. Yeah. One tractor away from having a tractor.
Yep.
And if you want to get some t-shirts and stuff, you could jump into Spring. Links are all in the show notes. I'll plug my own course. If you want to learn how to train dogs, go fucking learn that shit from me. There's probably a link in the show notes to my page, seriousdogbusiness.com.
There is.
Get in there.
Yep.
Get some Canine Ceuticals and all of our sponsors. But other than that, if you want to get in touch with us, you can jump into the Facebook discussion group. It's the Canine Paradigm discussion group. Lots of people in there having good times. But you could shoot us an email. We info@thecaninparadigm.com. Love you all. Goodbye.
Oh,